Good morning, good morning, good morning. What is going on, everybody? Friday, May 30th, 8 a.m. on the dot. What is going on, everybody? Thank you very much for tuning in. I appreciate you guys hanging out. Hopefully, everybody's enjoying the start of their Friday morning, getting ready for the weekend. Quick week this week. This was fast. Kind of surprised here that we're already towards the end of the week here. Got a lot of work to do before we get to the weekend. Thank you very much for hanging out. Appreciate you guys being a part of the show. Good morning to everybody that's hanging out on the channel. Please subscribe to the channel as always. All right, we got a fun show today. I'm going to start playing some hypotheticals. We're going to now start. We're going to start throwing out some trade activity here, some trade rumors out there. I'm reading a lot of different articles here, and everybody's kind of already trading Austin Reaves. So I'm gonna try to find out what the caliber of a player that people are talking about. So we got a lot to get into. We'll get into it. I'm gonna slow down here. I'm gonna take my time here. We're in no rush. We got an hour plus. By the way, we do have a members show today at 10 a.m. So if you're an MVP member, hang around at 10 a.m. We'll do another show for MVP members. I'm gonna give everyone a quick rundown what we got going on for the show today. Before I do, let me just quickly say, got a quote here real quick I want to share with everybody. Never quit something with great long-term potential just because you can't deal with the stress of the moment. Never quit something with great long-term potential just because you can't deal with the stress of the moment. All right, appreciate you guys being a part of the show. There's a quote right there for everybody. If somebody's got a quote they want to share with everybody else, feel free to lob it in. All right, let's kind of take a quick look here, quick little rundown of what we're going to be doing today on this Friday. We'll be chilling here. We'll be hanging out. No rush today. I don't got to be anywhere, anything like that. So we'll be taking our time today. Knicks stay alive. We'll look a little bit at yesterday's game. To be honest with you, not very entertaining. I didn't think Game 5 was all that good. I'm not shocked that the Knicks forced a Game 6. The big question is going to be, can they force a Game 7? So I think this more has to do with tomorrow night's game than anything else. But we'll spend a little bit of time on that game nonetheless. Tyrese Halliburton goes from one of the best games you can possibly see in the history of the NBA. No turnovers. Just phenomenal to where was Tyrese Halliburton yesterday. I've been seeing some articles. So this is what I want to kind of spend the bulk of the show on today. A lot of articles out there talking about, Austin Reaves. We saw that quote, which, by the way, Eric Pincus had that quote on here. This was a couple of weeks ago, but he recently was talking about how kind of what Austin Reaves can demand potentially in the open market. So a lot of the articles right now that I'm seeing about Austin Reaves specifically is, yes, there's definitely attention towards trading Austin Reaves. My question to everybody is, what caliber of a center do you want to trade Austin Reaves for if you're going to put him on the market? Because the names that I'm seeing out there for Austin Reaves, yeah, I just completely disagree with. So we could start looking at some of the best bigs in the league. And, of course, we're not talking Giannis or Nikola Jokic or something like that. But at what point, what's the bar here to say, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and not trade Austin Reaves for that guy if the Lakers are to shop Austin Reaves? Now, I think the Lakers are going to try to hold on to him unless there's just an offer that comes through. So we'll talk a little bit about it. There were 3 players. There was an article out there that had Nick Claxton, Jared Allen, and Daniel Gafford. So we'll basically kind of talk about what caliber of a player should the Lakers look if they're going to move on from Austin Reaves. What kind of center are you getting back in return? I also want to I thought there were some interesting vets that could be available for the Lakers as well. I saw another article out there as well of some players maybe the Lakers can target. It's not going to cost you an Austin Reaves, so that I immediately have some interest in. There was a quote about Luka in the LA Times just about how, I guess you can call it, motivated he may be, trying to prove to everybody else that he's not the guy that the Dallas Mavericks made him out to be. We'll find out this summer, so we'll spend a little bit of time on that. Inside the NBA, 35 seasons, 35 years they were around, and now they're going to move to ESPN. If ESPN's very, very wise about this, they should do nothing and leave Inside the NBA alone. We'll see if that's what they end up doing, which I actually kind of think they're going to. There's some rumors about Giannis Antetokounmpo, some rumors about Drew Holiday, even potentially to the Los Angeles Clippers. The Pelicans are basically saying everyone's up for grabs. You can call us about anybody. So we'll look into that as well. And then there was one other thing that I had here, Paul George on the face of the NBA. Everybody's got an opinion now on the face of the NBA. We'll do the weekend preview, and then we'll call it a weekend. So we got a lot to get into, a lot of different things to hit on. So I appreciate you guys hanging out. Let me look at a couple of the comments here real quick before we get started, and then we can go from there. Good one here. Fitness is like marriage. You can't cheat on it and expect it to work. Why are you talking about my own fitness? Why are you getting into my own personal business? Maybe I cut a corner here and there. Let me see another one here. One quote that I will always remember: opportunities define us, even the ones we miss. Phenomenal right there. That's good right there as well. All right, great stuff here. And then we'll get the show started. Some people want to trade. We're getting a tub of Pringles in return for AR. You can't diminish returns like that. Yeah, I'll say this, and we'll get into Austin Reaves here in just a second. But if you can't find a trade that makes sense for Austin Reaves, then you just hold on to Austin Reaves. And if you have to pay Austin Reaves, then you just pay for Austin Reaves. I think there is actually a little bit more of a simplicity that comes to AR, but we'll talk about that as the show progresses. Okay, let's start off with the Knicks staying alive. I just want to hit on this playoff game, and frankly, I don't really have too much on this game, to be honest with you. I just didn't think it was that entertaining, that exciting, and frankly, I just thought it was maybe a little bit more predictable. I think the bigger surprise last night would have been if the Indiana Pacers closed this thing out in 5 games. It doesn't seem like a 5-game series, right? This seems like a series that should go 6 or 7. And for the Pacers, it better go 6, because I think if it goes 7 and you end up back in, New York, the Pacers would be in some trouble. But just kind of a dominating performance, you could say. By the time you got to halftime, you kind of knew what the game was going to be. I think there was one point where Indiana got it all the way down to maybe 10. And then right after that, what did the Knicks go on? Maybe a 12-0 run. And next thing you know, is a 20, 22-point game, something along those lines. Nobody other than Mathurin was good for the Indiana Pacers. I mean, everybody was bad. I mean, go look at Tyrese Halliburton. After the night that he had a couple nights ago, what was that, on Tuesday night, where we're all praising him. And by the way, he deserved to be praised, and the triple-double that he had, and most overrated player in the NBA. He's basically telling everybody that you don't know what the hell you're talking about. 0 turnovers. He follows that up with an 8.6 assist performance with 2 rebounds. So he was really, really bad yesterday, but everybody was. Naismith was 1 for 8. Pascal Siakam was 5 of 13, had 15, 6, and 5. Really nobody, like I mentioned, other than Mathurin, was good for the Indiana Pacers. Even Miles Turner, 5 points, 2 rebounds, 2 assists, so nobody did anything. For the Knicks, they were solid. Jalen Brunson, 32, kind of set the tone for them. Cat had 24 and 13. I know he was questionable to play, but he came out and did his work. Hart had a really nice game as well, 12 points and 10 rebounds. So you had 5 or 6 guys in double figures for the Knicks. They survive. They move on for one more game, and we'll see what happens tomorrow night in Indiana. Tomorrow's a game. So, I think tomorrow, if you're the Indiana Pacers, you have built yourself equity to lose that game against the Knicks at the Madison Square Garden, where they were going to be wildly desperate. That's it. The season was on the line. But tomorrow, the Indiana Pacers basically got no margin for error. They're going to have to figure out a way to win so they don't have to go back to the Madison Square Garden. It's going to be a fun game. I mean, if you think about it, tomorrow night, 5 o'clock tip-off, Saturday night game in Indiana, a chance to get to the NBA Finals. And the New York Knicks will do everything they possibly can to survive one more day and see if they can force a Game 7. I think Game 7 will be Monday night. I know the NBA Finals start a week from yesterday, so no matter what happens, it really didn't matter as far as how long the series went. The NBA Finals has an official set date, and then that's it. So whether you swept the squad that you were playing, or it took you 7 games, you'll still get a few days rest before the NBA Finals start. So tomorrow should be fun. Again, not a shock at all that the Knicks handled business and did what they did against the Pacers. And now the big question is going to be, can the Indiana Pacers close it out and get to the NBA Finals? So there'll be pressure, obviously, on both squads. Should be a fun game tomorrow for NBA fans out there. Anytime get to some of these elimination games, they're always fun. And we'll see what eventually happens. Let me just look at a couple of the comments here, and then we can go from there. Let's see. I know a lot of people want to talk about Austin Reaves. We're just going to get into that. Let's see what else we got here. Let's see. I just want to see if there's anything on this game. And if there isn't, that kind of tells me that that game was that bad yesterday, that nobody really had that much interest in it. So I understand it from there. All right, let's see what we got here. Yeah, for the most part, I mean, really the only comments that I'm seeing here is that Tyrese Halliburton was, obviously was disappointing yesterday, that the Indiana Pacers were really bad yesterday. And that kind of sets the tone right there. Okay. We'll move on. For those who are going to watch the game tomorrow, we'll all enjoy it tomorrow and kind of go from there, and we'll see what happens. We'll see if they force a game 7 and or if the Indiana Pacers are wrapping it up tomorrow. If I had to put my money on it, I'm going to go with the Indiana Pacers end up winning the series tomorrow. They move on, and they got the Oklahoma City Thunder coming up in a week. So we'll see what happens in regards to that. All right, let's talk some Lake Show. I think it's kind of been fun to start seeing some of these look, this is only the hype around the Lakers and the hype around what happens in the offseason. It's literally just beginning. It hasn't even really started yet, to be honest with you. I mean, really, when you start kind of hearing more about free agency, what are teams going to do? I love the quote that Shams Charania had earlier in the week. I mentioned that's something that Rob Pelinka said during the exit interviews. It's going to be a wild summer, and there's going to be a lot of moving and shaking, and there's going to be a lot of teams that feel like they're a piece away from really competing for an NBA championship or getting out of their conference. There's going to be a lot of teams that think that they're not going to be able to strike in free agency, so they're going to have to make some type of a trade. And that's kind of the position that the Lakers are in right now. So if you start looking at, if you start paying attention to some of the different articles that are out there, I love reading some of the quotes that are out there. If you start kind of putting the pieces together, hey, maybe there's a good chance Jackson Hayes is not coming back to the Lakers because he wasn't crazy about some of his playing time in the playoffs or how little the Lakers used him. Will they trade Austin Reaves because of the predicament, the situation that they're in, that they got to go get a big man? Do they hold on to Austin Reaves and do nothing? What's LeBron going to do? Like, we know all the different storylines out there. So there was an article out there, and I'm going to kind of base a little bit on this, and we'll kind of walk through it together. I like some of the ideas here in regards to what the Lakers can do, what are some of their options, and everything else. What I'm trying to figure out from everybody is if Austin Reaves is going to be traded. Remember when his agent came out and said something to the effect of second string centers, something along those lines? Maybe this is what he's referring to. I don't know 100% what he's referring to. To be honest with you, I'm not 100% sure what the angle was of his agent. But here's what I will tell you. What I'm trying to figure out is what's that threshold where you say to yourself, if Austin Reaves is on the table, yes, I'm trading Austin Reaves for this caliber of a center. And then what's that threshold of saying, I'm not trading Austin Reaves for this caliber of a center? What's kind of that middle ground, I guess, that we can talk about? Because, listen, we all get it. If I told you that Giannis was available and he wanted to come to the Lakers and the Lakers had to trade Austin Reaves, of course. I mean, but we're talking about such a no-brainer, it's not even worth a discussion. Okay, at what stage do you get to a center where you're like, hey, you know what? That's actually a really interesting one. I'm not sure if that makes sense for the Lakers, but it also can make sense if they're going to give up on Austin Reaves because they feel like they got to go get a center. Dan Weike had put something in the LA Times that basically it's got to be something significant if the Lakers are going to give up on Austin Reaves and they're going to allow him to, or they're going to trade him or kind of turn the page and decide, well, we got to get somebody that makes more sense for Luka, and we don't want to lock up $75-80 million in the backcourt just for two players that both of them have obviously great strengths, but they have wild, they struggle on the defensive side. I mean, that's just, the more blunt way to put it. Okay, so here's an article. I'm going to walk through this with everybody here. Let's walk through this article real quick. This is on Yahoo Sports, and it's basically best replacements for Jackson Hayes if Jackson Hayes isn't going to be a Laker. And I just want to kind of walk through this with everybody because I want people's opinion. I want their thoughts on the caliber of players that we're looking at. All right, let me just get this where I need it to be. All right, got to make okay, so let's go through this. Okay, here's a player. Let me give everybody an example. Nick Claxton. What do people think of Nick Claxton? Because this is what I will say about Nick Claxton. Nice player. Age-wise, the right player, kind of somebody that you can look at and say, hey, this guy could be on the Lakers for 3, 4, 5 years, only 25 years old. I think his contract is very reasonable. He's on a 3-year, $68 million contract. Here are some of his stats right here, 10-7. Definitely, almost 2 blocks a game, by the way. Definitely a player, an athlete, a guy that would work really, really well with Luka Doncic. Okay, here's the question. Look part of this deal here. It might require the Lakers to part way with Austin Reaves, potentially Rui, Dalton Connect. This is just, obviously coming up with different trade scenarios out here. Is Nick Claxton good enough player to say, okay, hey, if we're going to get rid of Austin Reaves, that's the player that you want to get rid of? Okay, let me just play this out for everybody. If you got rid of Rui Hachimura and if you got rid of Austin Reaves, do you now feel like, and by the way, you added Nick Claxton, is that a team now adding Nick Claxton that's going to compete in the Western Conference for a potential a Western Conference Finals berth? Is that a team that's going to make a deep playoff run? I'm a fan of Nick Claxton. I'm just going to go through each one of these here real quick, and then I'll start looking at everybody's comments. I'm a fan of Nick Claxton. The only way, in my opinion, you trade for Nick Claxton, you better be keeping Austin Reaves. Austin Reaves, if I'm trading Austin Reaves for Nick Claxton, I'm sorry. I'm not on board on that one. Do they need Nick Claxton? Sure they do. But you're going to tell me Nick Claxton, Luka Doncic, Dorian Finney-Smith, and LeBron James, and go ahead and throw in some other little pieces in there, Jared Vanderbilt, whoever you want to say, that's going to compete in the Western Conference to try to get out of the West? I don't think so. So here's one example. I would say that, no, I don't think that makes any sense. Okay, here's Jared Allen. Here's another player. Again, this is just an article on Yahoo Sports. I want to walk through it just because I think it makes for some good conversation in regards to the caliber of player that you would trade a guy like Austin Reaves for. Okay, here's Jared Allen. Jared Allen, phenomenal. Nice player, right size. Look at his stats. 13 points a game, almost 10 rebounds. A little bit older, so I'm not actually 100% sure how old Jared Allen is, but I know he's not a youngster. He's been in the league for a little bit. Here's the only difference here. This one is, are you able to put together a package where you're not giving up Austin Reaves in that package? If you are, then okay, I think these, those are the types of things that are no-brainers. It's kind of similar to the Mark Williams trade when the Lakers were trying to trade for Mark Williams. If you're putting together a package, yes, it might cost you some draft compensation. I know they don't have a ton of draft compensation, but at the end of the day, are you keeping – if I asked everybody, what's the biggest asset that the Lakers have, I would tell you it's Austin Reaves. That's the biggest asset that they have. There isn't a bigger asset. They're not getting rid of Luka, so he's not going anywhere. LeBron's going to be 41 years old, so that's a different conversation. The biggest asset that the Lakers have right now is Austin Reaves. Dalton Connect is an asset, but much, much smaller of an asset. Those draft picks are assets, but they're not as valuable as what Austin Reaves can be. They're probably going to be built into some trade anyways. Okay, so there's another player for you, Jared Allen. And then the last one is Daniel Gafford, which I still don't think the Lakers are going to probably make a move with the Dallas Mavericks in the near future. Here's another player that if, again, I'll go back to it. Every time I see Austin Reaves' name come up in in supposed trades out there for these caliber of centers, I'm not interested. And it's not that those players can't help the Lakers, and it's not that, those players wouldn't be assets to the Lakers. He's the biggest asset that you have. He's the best asset that you have. And if you just let one of those assets go, obviously in one of these types of scenarios, then you're basically saying to yourself, this is it. This is what we're running with. And that means that team's got to compete for an NBA championship. And I got a difficult time thinking that the Lakers are going to be coming out of the Western Conference because they got Nick Claxton, but they lost Austin Reaves and they lost Rui Hachimura. That doesn't sound like to me that's going to be that's going to be the benefit for the Lakers. Now, if you're able to make a deal and you kept Austin Reaves, but you're able to make some kind of a deal where Rui Hachimura is involved or Gabe Vincent's involved, Dalton Knecht is involved, picks are involved, I think that's the path the Lakers are going to have to take, because I'm just not giving up Austin Reaves because they're in need of a big man. I think Austin Reaves has a tremendous amount of value, and maybe we're undervaluing how valuable he is for the Lakers. And I know a lot of people aren't too crazy about what Austin Reaves did in the summer, did in the playoffs. And I know a lot of people are down on Austin Reaves right now, but I still think he has a tremendous amount of value. And when I see names like that, I'm thinking in my mind, sure, you can try to put together a deal. You can give assets to another team, but I don't think you're giving up Austin Reaves in any of those types of deals. I was looking at this, just, obviously this kind of comes with, I'm looking at best big men in the NBA. Okay, we know it. Okay, you got the ADs of the world, Wembanyama, Bam Adebayo is on that list, Domantas Sabonis, Karl Anthony Towns, Şengün, Rudy Gobert, Draymond Green, and then I think they had Jared Allen at number 11. Miles Turner was number 12. Brook Lopez was number 13. I don't think those are still the same. I mean, Ivica Zubac, you got to put in that category. He's been phenomenal. There's other players that are doing some good things right now in the NBA. But the type of center that the Lakers end up getting this summer that helps them clearly kind of try to put themselves in some type of a position where they can compete again, because we know they couldn't compete in the playoffs. The type of center that you get, what you give up to go get that center, is really going to be the question mark for the Lakers. So let me take a look at some of the comments here. I'm curious to see how some people feel in regards to some of the names that I put out there, and we'll take it from there. Let's see what we got here. Somebody wants to trade me straight up for Austin Reaves. Slee, I think this conversation we're having is the reason his agent said don't trade him for a second string center. You might be right at that, but the issue that I had when he had that comment, to be honest with you, was who's saying they're going to trade him for a second year? I mean, is anyone in the front office, do you think? Do you think anyone from the Los Angeles, from the front office or from the organization will trade Austin Reaves for a second string center? Like that. That's why none of it really made sense to me. It's like, well, who is he arguing with? Is he arguing with just people on Twitter? You know what I mean? Like, I keep saying this. There aren't many assets on this Lakers team. He's the biggest asset that the Lakers have. So if you're trading Austin Reaves, you better be telling yourself that they got a legitimate chance now of really competing in the Western Conference, that there's a big that's going to be there for the next 5 years that the Lakers feel like they could grow off of. I would rather keep our team and add a center and a power forward, Clint Capella and Paul Reed, to get rebounding and toughness. I don't disagree with you at all on that one. Let's see here. Rob is making a statement that he isn't getting fleeced by trading AR. And he shouldn't. I think I've read a lot of things over these last, let's say, couple of weeks or so. I think there are a lot of people out there that have maybe a certain taste in their mouth about Austin Reaves, or because of his performance in the playoffs, are really down on him. Guys, Austin Reaves is a phenomenal basketball player and came up through the Lakers system and Yes, is he eventually going to get paid market value? He is. He's probably going to end up getting $30 million a year, but you don't have to be forced to trade him. I actually even think you can get all the way to the trade deadline. And then even by the trade deadline, if you're not ready to make a decision on him, okay, then just pay him his market value and keep him on the roster and then figure out what you do after that. But I think the Austin Reaves side of things, you better be getting something good. All right, let me see another one here. Claxton needs to be a target. Not for Reaves, though. Nets are the only team with cap space, DK, Rui, Maxey to make the money work in a 2031 first-round pick. You can find a way to, I think, allure other teams with some draft capital that you have. Dalton Connect is a nice player. Listen, maybe the Nets are not trading Nick Claxton for that package, and I get it. I completely understand it. Maybe they think they could get something better. But I'm also I'm saving Austin Reaves for a trade that was, I'm not using this player as an example, but this is kind of a poor example. Bam Adebayo is available. It's got to be somebody like that where you're saying to yourself, okay, now can we put together a deal with draft capital that Miami's interested in because they're rebuilding or something along those lines. All right, let me see. Let me take a look at some more comments here. Let's see. Claxton is on a regressive pay contract. That in itself is benefit. Gafford, not a big fan of Gafford, okay? Jared Allen at 10 to 15 million is reasonable, not 20 million straight up. Trade Rui for Allen, might consider it. That's not something that Cavs would do. He's got value. Jared Allen's kind of made a nice piece for himself, to be honest with you. All right, let's see what else we got here. Let's see what we got here. Have you seen this front office work? Yeah, there are times, Jason, that it is it's frustrating watching them work, and then there's other times where, you know, they've made some moves that have made sense. So I don't think you could kind of really predict the front office for the Lakers. I think they're a little bit all over the place, to be honest with you. I think there's some times where you could compliment them, and other times you're like, I'm not sure what they're doing. Austin is going to get $30 million a year, whether Lakers pay him or not. If idea is to trade him, trade to a team on the second apron because they're desperate to drop salary. Nas and Na from Minnesota, for example. Nickeil Alexander-Walker. I was just reading an article this morning that they're not going to be able to afford him. The Minnesota Timberwolves will not be able to afford. They'll probably bring back Julius Randle and they'll bring back Naz Reid, but they won't bring back Nickeil Alexander-Walker, which, by the way, makes sense. The other two players are more of an asset. All right, let me see a couple more here. Got to keep Rui. If you trade Reaves, unless it's an all-star center, you need Rui's offense, and he's not bad defending the top five. Rui's an interesting guy too because he's on the final year of his contract as well. This is it for Rui Hachimura. He got paid well, $17 million a year. I thought that contract was he got more money than Austin Reaves, and he's definitely not asked to do more than Austin Reaves. Reaves has been much more consistent than he has. All right, let's get a couple more in here. Rui should be traded as well. We don't talk enough about him. If AR is a trade chip, D'Lo went, he can be too. Honestly, I don't think anybody is really holding their breath on Rui. I like Rui, but Rui is also an inconsistent player. Not really sure what we're going to get every single night. I think that's going to, obviously depend on a lot of different factors. But I don't think they're holding on to Rui if there's a trade that they like out there. I don't think that's going to be happening. Okay, let's keep things moving here. That was a little bit on the Austin Reaves piece. If you guys got some thoughts or comments, feel free to throw it in there. And Rui is, there's Rui's safe. I don't, definitely not safe. There was an article out there as well that talked a little bit about some veterans in the NBA that the Lakers should be targeting. Some vets out there that the Lakers should be targeting. I thought it was interesting, and we'll see. I think sometimes deals that you make, you got to look at other teams out there. Where are they? And are they in a position where they're not interested in winning? They just want draft capital. And if they could find a way to get some players that are on expiring contracts. But here's some names that were thrown out there, some vets that I think, listen, if they're healthy, they could potentially play a role on the Lakers. Chris Middleton's name came up. Jerami Grant came up. Here's the problem with Jerami Grant. Jerami Grant still has value in the league, and Jerami Grant is kind of interesting with him. He's been rumored for years now, and he's kind of continued with the Portland Trailblazers. Here's an interesting name that I thought was interesting out there. Marcus Smart. Marcus Smart now still part of the Wizards, I believe. So, again, these are teams that have players and really have no interest in keeping these guys, I don't think. I mean, we'll see what the Wizards end up doing, but that's not a franchise that feels like they're winning or they have any interest in winning. And then the other veteran that they had on there was Brook Lopez. And Lakers, obviously, we know Brook Lopez is kind of one of the names that have been rumored around the Lakers. And not just the Lakers. I think Golden State was taking a look at him. There's some other teams that are going to be interested in him as well. So, again, if Lakers are to acquire a guy like Chris Middleton, they're going to have to trade for him. If they're going to acquire a guy like Marcus Smart, they're going to have to trade for him. The one thing I like with players like that, they got a lot of playoff experience, championship experience, and they've been in the league for a long time. So some other names to kind of keep in mind, and I'm sure there's going to be some veteran teams out there as well that have I think there's going to be some veteran guys as well that are out there, or veteran teams as well that want to teams that are competing for a championship that want veteran players like that. All right, let's see what we got here. Brook is 37. His offense fell off a cliff this postseason. He's a free agent. Steven Adams Capella could be signed for the taxpayer mid-level exception. One of the things that I kind of take away here, can I just say this real quick on this comment? Kessler and Sexton's our best bet because they are free agents for 2026. The problem with these, some of these players that are on the Utah Jazz is I think it's really tough to do a deal with Danny Ainge. I think it's really tough to do a deal to try to acquire anybody. I guess Danny Ainge is just kind of more known as a front office executive that talks a lot but doesn't actually make moves. Okay, with all that in mind, obviously those are a few things on the Lakers and some Laker angles there and some players they could potentially go after. I think for me the thing that stands out the most is there a way you can hold on to Austin Reaves and still get a big that you feel like can match with Luka, can contribute on a night-in, night-out basis, can be a defensive strength for the Lakers rather than all the defensive liabilities that they had in the playoffs, a rebounder? Can you find a way, like you tried to do before the trade deadline, to get a big but keep Austin Reaves and keep some of those other assets? And if that costs you Dalton Connect and a first-rounder and potentially a guy like Rui Hachimura or a Vando or something along those lines, or a Gabe Vincent, that's got to be the first path that the Lakers take. I'm not as quick to saying get rid of Austin Reaves, even though I understand he's got a tremendous amount of value. And if you do trade him, you better be getting something back of real value that's going to be on this Lakers team for years to come. So I think that to me is the best way that I could sum it up. And I think, as we look at the Western Conference right now, we've kind of talked a little bit about this. If I said, where do the Lakers rank right now in the Western Conference? Right now, the team as is, they're pretty far down the list of the West. I mean, until they make some moves and they make some trades and they acquire some guys in the offseason and they address the lack of size that they have, I mean, clearly the Thunder are better. Clearly Minnesota's better. We saw what Minnesota did to them. I think Denver would beat the Lakers in a 7-game set. I think the Warriors, if they're healthy, that's kind of a toss-up or a dogfight. Dallas, that's a question mark as well, depending on their health. Houston, I think, would be a problem. So even if the Lakers you can make an argument that they can hang with some of these other teams in the Western Conference. The reality is today, as we sit here, the Lakers are as far away from getting to the NBA Finals, I think, as they've been in the last couple of years, because at least when they had Anthony Davis and LeBron, you still felt like, okay, they're probably not going to get to the Western Conference Finals, but they have a team. They have the pieces actually fit. Now the big question is going to be how the Lakers find a way to obviously make these pieces fit and put together a roster around Luka. Okay. Article in the LA Times from Dan Weike. I thought there was an interesting piece here around. I thought there was an interesting piece here around Luka, and I'm going to talk about it in just 2 seconds, and then I'll come back to some of these comments that are here. And I know people are giving their opinion in regards to some of the different trade options and everything else. By the way, get ready. I mean, we're now far away from all these rumors that are going to be coming up on a daily basis, guys that can be going. I mean, I already saw it. I mean, one of my topics here is NBA rumors. There's already names that are being thrown out there with specific teams that are starting. So we'll figure that out as well. Okay, article in the LA Times. Let me read this here real quick for everybody. It's going to be about Luka. Here's a piece from Dan Weike, and I'm going to read it, and then I want to talk a little bit about it in regards to Luka. You guys remember those photos that came out of Luka at, what was he at, a Barcelona game? I think it was a Barcelona basketball game. And he looked thin. He looked like guy dropped some LBs. And everybody on the internet was like, hey, Luka's in shape. And then there were other people saying like he looks exactly the same. I thought he looked like he dropped some weight. Let me just read this off here, and then we'll react to it. It says, without trying to there were people in his camp who felt as though he was in store for a big offseason because of the humiliation he felt in the discussions about his work ethic and conditioning after he was traded from Dallas. With Eurobasket getting underway in late August, the Lakers should expect a fully engaged Doncic whenever he gets back to Los Angeles. So again, this was, I guess, some people within his camp felt as though he was in store for a big offseason because of the humiliation he felt in the discussions about his work ethic and conditioning after he was traded from Dallas. So that was an article I took from the LA Times. And, I think it's Real Madrid. My bad here. So people are putting Real Madrid, not Barcelona. So it was Real Madrid that he was at. So my bad on that one. So real quick here, I think it's a really interesting offseason for Luka because it's going to be a very big year for Luka Doncic. Luka's walking into a year where I think the expectations have never been higher for him and the pressure's never been higher for him. And that's not to say he didn't have pressure in Dallas, but honestly, all he's done while he was with the Dallas Mavericks, he was just this trajectory that was going upwards. An imperfect roster, got to the Western Conference Finals, was dismantling teams even from a young age. Think of some of his games he had against the Clippers or the Dallas or the Minnesota Timberwolves or the Phoenix Suns, how he dismantled them. I mean, his trajectory in his career has only gone up. Obviously, he gets traded. On his way out the door, he gets dragged through the mud. He just made it to the NBA Finals. I mean, the last 2 years, he got to the Western Conference Finals and the NBA Finals. And now, all of a sudden, the Dallas Mavericks basically said, you're not in good enough shape, and we don't feel like you can win an NBA championship. Doesn't it feel like this upcoming year is a very, very critical year for Luka Doncic and just kind of to help change a little bit of this narrative that started? By the way, even him as a Laker, I will tell you, and this is from me covering all these games and being at the arena and interacting a lot with Laker fans. A lot of Laker fans were very critical of Luka as well. A lot of Laker fans was like, this is what we traded for. Now, I know they're not meaning that. I think what they're saying is, how come this guy isn't in better shape? How come he does look out of shape? How come, I forget who it was, but maybe it was Markieff Morris. I forget who it was, but there was a quote out there talking about how difficult it is that people think that when the season starts, that it's easy for players to stay in shape. And I forget who the player was. It might have been Markieff that was basically saying like, look, you're eating hotel food. You're up until 3 or 4 in the morning. You're traveling. You're this. It's not that easy to be in shape during the season. Now, maybe we're making too many excuses for Luka. I think personally we are. But doesn't it feel like we're walking into a year for Luka Doncic where a couple things can happen? Either Luka is walking into the best part of his career. Literally, he's not even into his prime yet. He's 26 years old. You typically kind of start walking into your prime around 27, 28 years old, and then that should last for 4 or 5 years. Luka Doncic, one of two things are happening. If you're the Dallas Mavericks, you think Luka is going to start declining. If you're the Los Angeles Lakers, you're obviously hoping and praying that this man is about to walk into the prime of his career and he's going to compete for championships with the Los Angeles Lakers. That's kind of what's at stake for Luka. And that's why, that motivation that he could potentially have, that motivation of the things that were said about him on his way out in Dallas, doesn't he want to try to prove all these people wrong? Will this be his best year in the NBA coming? And I know that's going to have a lot to do with how the Lakers surround him. Or are his best years behind him in Dallas? Because the Dallas Mavericks truly, genuinely think his best days are behind him, and it's going to be up to Luka Doncic to prove otherwise. If you told me I got to kind of pick a path here, I do think Luka wants to be great. I do think Luka wants to be a legend. I think that it's more likely to happen that he's got his best years in front of him than he's got his best years behind him. I do think the Lakers franchise will move heaven and earth to accommodate him, and then we'll see what happens, right? And then we'll kind of have to, obviously wait and see what happens and see what the Lakers do or see what Luka does from here. But it's kind of all in his hands. He can't control what the front office does, but he can control the best version of himself, and we'll see what happens. But I thought that quote of his camp, that this guy was humiliated, and this offseason is going to mean a lot to him to try to prove a lot of those critics wrong and take all that stuff personally. Okay, let's see what we got here. There are real people out there that think Ant is better than Luka. The fat shaming comments and comments downplaying his talent and accomplishment should be why he comes back with vengeance. Okay. Name a Euro who looks jacked up. You don't have to look jacked, but I think if you watch how he was playing on the defensive side of the ball, I think there are a lot of factors that you look at Luka and you're like, yeah, this guy should definitely be in better shape. All right, let's see another one here. He's in his prime now. Let's see what we got here. Not regular hotel. Honestly, there's just no excuse. I don't think, there's no athlete who has absolutely everything in front of him as far as chefs and nutritionists and trainers and money and, everything that comes with these athletes. There's no excuse not to be in the absolute best shape. Like, I don't think anybody is I don't think anybody's going to sympathize from that perspective. By the way, if he wasn't 100% healthy, which I saw some people saying there, if he wasn't 100% healthy, okay, the summer is his chance to get healthy. And that's why it's like, all right, well, let's see what this man does moving forward and not really gauge him on those couple of months with the Lakers that he was there. Skinny Luka will get dominated. Dallas fans claim that he lost weight in all the summers. All right, we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens in regards to that. Traveling equals, but guys, I mean, we're really making excuses for some of these athletes that they can't, eat the best food and everything else. I got a very difficult time trying to make excuses for these players. I really do. I mean, I think we all do, right? I think there's a little bit of all of us that's like, all right, yeah, I get it. I understand that they have some things that could be a hurdle, but let's be honest here. I mean, what really hurdles do they have when it comes to health and everything else? They got everything literally in front of them. Okay, shout out to Brad Wallace and the Wallace firm. We got a few more topics that I want to get into, but before we do, let's talk about Brad Wallace and the Wallace firm. Been partner of the show here for the last couple of months here on YouTube. Brad Wallace, somebody that was advertising with me when I was at 710 ESPN, and got a personal relationship with him. I've known him for 5 years. He wanted to be a part of the YouTube show as well. Phenomenal. I appreciate it very much from his perspective of him wanting to support the channel. But the main thing I want to get across, and I hope for Brad Wallace and the Wallace firm that this partnership is good for his business as well. If you need an injury attorney, if you're in a position where you or a family member has been in a serious situation, a wrongful death case, something that happened at work, something that happened on the road, just know that I can introduce you to Brad Wallace and the Wallace firm. I got a specific example that I could give to everybody. He was representing one of his clients against Home Depot. Obviously the as large of a corporation can get, these companies always want to settle. Insurance companies always want to settle. Brad Wallace and the Wallace firm, no, they want to do what's in the best interest of their client. And that was taking this thing to trial. They went to trial. In the Los Angeles County, the jury delivered, a $4.6 million verdict on behalf of the Wallace firm's client and found Home Depot responsible for nearly $3 million of that amount. I like giving personal examples because I think those examples just to bring to light how Brad Wallace works with individuals, obviously anybody in the state of California that he can help. We created a URL, wallacewins.com/Sliwa, wallacewins.com/Sliwa. You can go to the URL, you can get a free consultation. I can also make a personal introduction to Brad Wallace and the Wallace firm. You just send me an email and I'm happy to make that personal introduction. Thank you to Brad Wallace and the Wallace firm. I appreciate their partnership on the show. Okay. Keep moving here. I'll look at a couple comments here, and then I want to get into some of these NBA rumors that are out there as well. I saw that article, or I saw that video today as well. You guys remember when it was a Michael Finley that grabbed the beer from Luka after they got to after they just won the Western Conference Finals and are about to get to the NBA Finals? I think that was a year ago yesterday or a year ago today, something like that. What were they doing? Why are you grabbing this man's beer? Are you kidding me? How embarrassing did that look? The dude's over 21 years old. He's allowed to drink a beer. Let the man drink his beer. All right, let's see what we got here. Free agency is slim pickings. You're right about that. That's why if the Lakers are able to make some moves, it's going to have to be predominantly in the trade market. Now, it doesn't mean they can't, sign some guys in free agency and be a little bit creative. And, I put an article out yesterday about how the Lakers, they can use LeBron's help. I mean, that's just the reality. They can. It's up to LeBron how much, he wants to help. And it's all going to really depend on what players are available. And even if there are players available, LeBron doesn't have to help at all. It's completely up to him. But, yeah, we'll see what eventually happens there. Grabbing a beer from a grown man. I mean, what? Every time I see that video, I'm like, yeah, that's not a good look. That's not a good look. Okay, I don't know if you guys saw this. We know I want to do one thing on Inside the NBA, and then I'll get into some of these NBA rumors. We'll get into one thing I got on Paul George, and then we'll look at the weekend preview. Inside the NBA, we know that show is coming to an end as it currently is, but the idea is that, it's going to transition to ESPN, and ESPN supposedly will find out if they're going to touch it or not. So after 35 seasons, Inside the NBA is coming to an end. You've heard some of these quotes here from some of these guys, whether it be Barkley or Shaq or Kenny, Ernie, the entire crew, basically all saying that, look, we're going to still be around. Basically, the way this is going to work is that ESPN is going to carry Inside the NBA, but it's still going to be done out of Atlanta, Studio J. When did this? I think this this will be the first time that TNT is not carrying NBA games. I want to say since 1989, something along those lines, or at least they've been in the NBA business since 1989. And there's some good articles out there of what's ESPN going to do. I'm just going to be, honest, and I'm going to be real. When Inside the NBA is on, and I know not everybody is a fan of all these guys. I think there's some Laker fans that are not big fans of Charles Barkley. I don't have a problem with any of them. I enjoy watching it. I've never really found ESPN's pregame, halftime, and postgame show to be entertaining. I've never found it to be, oh my gosh, I got to watch that. But I found myself doing that with Inside the NBA for years, and I think a lot of people have. And the biggest question now is going to be, will they do anything? Will ESPN get in the way of Inside the NBA in any kind of, in any possible way or form? I know there was a time ESPN made clear that they're not going to touch anything. It says TNT Sports will continue to independently produce Inside the NBA from its Atlanta-based studios over the term of the agreement. That was an announcement ESPN made back in November when all this was kind of unfolding. The smartest thing ESPN can do, leave the damn show alone. Just don't do anything. And honestly, I think ESPN is smart enough to say, let's get the hell out of the way. If you look at Pat McAfee, kind of that partnership, and Pat McAfee coming to ESPN as well, Pat McAfee controls everything. They're not, nobody does anything with the Pat McAfee show. Pat McAfee is, there's some things that are said. It's like, damn, he said that on ESPN, but it's really Pat McAfee's show, and he's just licensing. Yeah, you can carry my show, but I'm still running everything. ESPN, I thought, was smart to do that. ESPN has kind of got out of the way, and it's like, listen, they got the money, they got the resources to basically say, we like that programming. Clearly, consumers like that programming better than they like ours. Why don't we just bring that programming over to ESPN and let's get the hell out of the way? That's a smart business plan, in my opinion. Now, I'm sure ESPN wishes they had control. I'm sure ESPN wishes that their programming was must-watch TV. It isn't always must-watch TV. And I think it's kind of a very smart strategy to say we can keep Charles Barkley and Ernie Johnson and, Kenny Smith and Shaquille O'Neal, and we can air it on ESPN. I think I saw some of the stuff that they're going to carry. So ESPN and ABC. So Inside the NBA will be on, including ESPN's pregame, halftime, postgame coverage of the NBA Finals on ABC, conference finals, NBA playoffs, all ABC games after January 1st, Christmas Day, opening week, the final week of the season, other marquee live events. They're going to have them a ton. They're just going to have them for the more meaningful games. And they're still going to, I guess ESPN's still going to keep NBA Countdown, NBA Today. They're going to still do what they do. But it's different. Kendrick Perkins and Stephen A. Smith and some of these other guys that they have on there, that's just not must-watch TV for me. Inside the NBA has been pretty much must-watch TV for a long time. And whether you're a fan of that show or not, that's the show. That's the show that everybody's kind of trying to chase. And instead of ESPN trying to figure out how to replicate it, they're just going to carry it. And I think if they're smart, they don't do anything to that show. They leave it alone. And I think ESPN, that's exactly what they're going to end up doing. All right, let me see some of the let me see some of this up here. ESPN is going to mess it up by putting Stephen A. Smith and Perk with them all the time. We'll see. We'll see. I think again, maybe they're going to do some stuff that involves their talent as well. That part I wouldn't be surprised about, but I think for the most part, that show's going to stay intact. Let's see what we got here. Do you guys actually care that Inside the NBA is no more? Been over them for a few years now. I got to be honest with you. Tell me NBA shows that you're dying to watch that are on TV. You tell me. A lot of the shows that I watch, I'll give you an example. The Hoops Collective podcast with Windhorse and some of those other guys, I like that show, but it's not typically on TV. It's usually on YouTube and it's usually on podcast form. Bill Simmons does a phenomenal podcast about the NBA, and obviously he's reacting to games and everything else. That's not on TV. That's on YouTube. That's on podcast form. So I think that I don't really think there's any NBA shows that are on TV other than inside the NBA that you're like, I want to watch that. That's just kind of how it's been. And even if you're not watching inside the NBA from start to finish, you're watching some of those clips that are on there. What other shows that are NBA shows? Maybe you like Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce when they do their show. Okay, cool. When they do their show, where's that on? It's on YouTube. It's on podcast form. So a lot of these good NBA shows, in my opinion, they're not on terrestrial TV, or that'd be terrestrial radio. They're not just on your local network TVs anymore. They're just not. I mean, I don't know how often you guys are watching Scott Van Pelt, and I like SVP. I like him, but I'm not watching Sports Center, and I'm not watching these shows the way I used to 15 years ago. It's just not happening. That's just not the way we're consuming it. All right, let me see what else we got here. Let's see what I'm watching. My guy. Thank you, Jason. Thank you, brother. I appreciate you very much. Thank you very much for doing that. I paid Jason. Paid him under the table. Let me see what this says. ESPN Inside the NBA show will be how China was down. All right. Okay. We're getting political here. Honestly, I don't watch pregame shows. I watch the game. I don't like the takes on the new generation. Fair. Fair on that one. I know a lot of people aren't too crazy with. There is this kind of. I think this. How do I describe this? There's a little bit of. I think the old school generation. People feel like the old school generation just dogs the new generation of NBA players, which I don't think they're wrong. I feel like there's a lot of that, and I don't really know why. I don't know why a lot of these old school players or old school NBA fans can't just enjoy what the players are today. It's not the same league. Like, you got to understand, life is not the same as it was in the mid 90s. It's just not. So, you know, when they say, well, I don't like the league because of this, that, and this. All right, well, the league's not the same. It's not supposed to be the same. All right, let's keep things moving here. But I do think ESPN will be smart about this, and I do think ESPN's not going to screw up inside the NBA because, frankly, I think if they did, it would be on ESPN's back, and I don't think ESPN wants that. I think ESPN's like, all right, well, we'll just keep the most popular sports show that's out there now is going to be aired on ESPN and ABC, kind of a win for both sides. The only one it's not a win for is technically TNT. Okay, let's keep moving here. Do you guys see some of these rumors? There's some rumors out there on some of the big-time players. By the way, Hoops Hype. How good of a website is Hoops Hype to just kind of it's been like this for a long time, but just to kind of it takes so many of these good articles that are out there and or condenses a lot of these it condenses a lot more of these YouTube videos and everything else. So Hoops Hype is doing its thing. Let me get to some NBA rumors here real quick. I'm going to share my screen with everybody, and we'll take a look at these together. This is going to be a little bit more NBA-centric, so not necessarily Lakers or anything like that. According to Brian Windhorst, let's read this together. There are a few teams that have enough assets to trade for Giannis Antetokounmpo and field a competitive team with him once the trade is complete. The Celtics, he said, are one of them. Let's read this here. I think you have to look at the teams that could make a trade for Giannis that Bucks would accept, and at the other side of the trade would have a contending team, Windhorst said during a recent appearance on ESPN's Get Up. So Boston would be on that list. I think New York would be on that list as well. Okay. I'm going to get into all these, but let me just kind of go through a few of the rumors real quick while I kind of have this up. And then we'll get into all this as well. And I'll read a couple more of these comments, and then we'll go from there. So he's saying that the Boston Celtics can put together a package for Giannis. So can the New York Knicks. One other rumor I want to read here real quick. No untouchables in New Orleans. There are no untouchables in New Orleans. League sources say the Pelicans are gauging the market for everyone on their roster. They would very well they very well could end up keeping their core pieces, namely Zion Williamson, but it appears the Pelicans are looking into taking different paths this summer, depending on what opportunities become available. So that tells you that anyone on the Pelicans for the right price could be available. And it sounds like even Zion Williamson could be available as well. And then the last thing, let me see if I got the Drew Holiday here lined up. If I don't, see if I could find it real quick. All right, it won't be on here. Let's see if I could sneak it in here real quick. Let's go to rumors. Let's go to the Clippers because Drew Holiday was on there. Clippers to pursue. Let's just read this last one here. Clippers to pursue Drew Holiday. Holiday is expected to be pursued by several teams on the trade market, and a league source tells Mass Live that the Los Angeles Clippers are one team expected to show interest in the 34-year-old. The Celtics outbid several teams, including the Clippers, per sources, for Holiday back in 2023. So, anyways, something to keep in mind here. Drew Holiday could be on the market, which is not the biggest surprise, but if you put him on a team like the Clippers, Drew Holiday is still a nice piece, and definitely still a piece that has value around the NBA. If he found himself, obviously, to the Clippers, something to keep in mind. All right, let me read some of the comments here, and then we'll get into this here. Replace Shaq with Gilbert Arenas. You guys big Gilbert Arenas fans? Arenas kind of back and forth for me. Some of his takes I like, other takes I'm not as crazy of, but you can't be a 100% on things. Windy is a hater. I disagree. I don't think Brian Windhorst is a hater. I think Brian Windhorst is just I think he tells it as it is, and I'm not the person to ask here because I personally like Windy, and then I also like I like him for obviously his NBA takes as well. Most ESPN programming is just hot takes and catchphrases. Yeah, they've kind of fell too much into that. Listen, I don't know what their data tells them. Maybe their data tells them this is the way to do it, and their numbers, I'm sure they're going to follow the numbers. So if that works, that works. Let's see some more here. I hope the Clippers don't get Drew Holiday. I'm with you. Drew Holiday's a nice player, and he's a champion. He's somebody that understands how to win. That's a big piece right there if he ends up with the right team. I'm a big fan of his game, and we'll see what the Celtics do. But there are a lot of rumors out there that the Celtics they can't keep that team together. Tatum's probably going to be out, if not all of next season, most of next season. So what is that going to mean? So there's something there as well. All right, let's see another one here. A couple more here, and then I'm going to get into the weekend preview. Trade AR for Trey Murphy III. Lakers need a big, I mean, I've seen this before. I've seen, Trey Murphy's a really nice player, by the way. But I've seen this before. I've seen kind of some of these conversations. AJ, I appreciate you with the super there. I appreciate that. They got to get a big. I mean, if AR is leaving, you got to get, you have to find a way to identify your lack of size, and that's got to be addressed. So we'll see what the Lakers end up doing, but for me, that to me is more important than anything else. Okay, let's just preview the weekend here real quick, and I know I got a couple of the supers that I'll get into here before we get out of here. Weekend preview, of course, is presented by the Wallace firm. I've mentioned this before. If you or someone is in a serious situation, reach out to Brad Wallace and the Wallace firm. See how they can help you. For more information on how they can help, go to wallacewins.com/Sliwa or click on my link in the description, wallacewins.com/Sliwa. Okay, couple things to preview here. So something to keep in mind in regards to what we got coming up this weekend. In the NBA, obviously we know the news. The news tomorrow will be Game 6, Knicks and the Pacers. That's at 5 o'clock. Should be a phenomenal game. Looking forward to that. If you're a big baseball fan, some big games coming up this weekend. Actually, some pretty fun games. Staying in the NL West, Giants are taking on the Marlins. Something to keep in mind in regards to that. Diamondbacks, who are kind of falling the other way. Nationals taking on the Diamondbacks. Yankees and the Dodgers. So a repeat of the World Series where the Dodgers won in, what they win in 5 games. Yankees and the Dodgers. So that obviously should be very, very exciting as well. That should be a phenomenal game. Padres have Pittsburgh, I think. Yeah, they got the Pirates. Padres are taking on the Pirates, everybody obviously trying to hang with the Dodgers in regards to the NL West. Dodgers made a trade yesterday, just something real quick here. Not a big trade. This is a perfect example. The Dodgers, they acquired Alexis Diaz in a trade with the Reds. This is somebody that has been an all-star. This is somebody that the Dodgers are, by the way, is a younger brother of Edwin Diaz. So, obviously everybody knows Edwin Diaz at the Mets. But why are they doing this? They're doing this because there's no risk at all. They got a ton of guys, bullpen guys that are injured right now. Dodgers got a ton of guys that are injured, period, in general, and still, winning games. But there's really no risk at all. I think that was a 13th round pick. A 13-round pick last summer that they're exchanging for him, and no risk at all. And you see if you can kind of get Alexis Diaz back to the shape he was when he was an all-star. And the Dodgers kind of have a track record of finding guys that maybe are not having as much success somewhere else and see if they can bring them in and have some success. So that gives you a little bit of an idea of what the weekend's going to look like as far as a weekend preview goes. So something to keep in mind in regards to that. Okay, let me read a couple final comments here, and then we're going to call it a day. I do want to throw out here to everybody. I'm going to put it in the comments. If you're not a member, please consider being a member. I'll do a members show starting at 10 o'clock today. We do it every Friday at 10 o'clock. I hope all the members can hang out 15, 20, 30 minutes, something along those lines. We just kind of shoot the shit with each other. I put a link in the description. Please consider doing it. Great way to support the channel, and it's $3 a month. Slee, these playoffs are proving that playoff experience and vets are overrated. Okay. Polanco should surround Luka with two-way athletic under 25 players. I don't know. The Indiana Pacers have players that have experience. Maybe not, vet experience. You're right about that. The Knicks got a lot of guys that have experience. I mean, a lot of vets that have been in the NBA for a little bit. I think the Oklahoma City Thunder, obviously, that's a unique one. That's a very, very unique one, that the second youngest team to ever make it to the NBA Finals. I get what you're trying to say, and I still think maybe you got enough experience with Luka, enough experience with Bron, enough experience with guys like Dorian Finney-Smith. Go get some youngsters. I see what you're saying there. I think the bigger problem with the Lakers is they just had an incomplete roster. I mean, that's the best way that I can put it. Seiko, thank you for the super, brother. I appreciate you. We get a couple more in, and then we'll call it a day. Let's see here. New York is done tomorrow night. Let's see what we got here. You mean OKC New York final? Let's see what happens. Please keep the NBC 1990s theme song. I think they're going to. I think they're going to, if I'm correct here. I think that's going to be part of it. Let's see here. I'm still watching. Can't wait for the OKC Indy Finals. Yeah, you got to be an NBA fan. I mean, I don't know what to tell you. By the way, the series isn't over. Let's see what happens tomorrow. It should be a fun, exciting game, and let's see what eventually kind of happens from there. All right, my people. I appreciate it. We got almost a $110 in the books. We got a good game coming up tomorrow. It's going to be a fun game tomorrow, a game 6 between the Pacers and the New York Knicks. Monday, Dave McMenamin is going to join the show. So Dave's going to come on, and I'm looking forward to having a conversation with him about the NBA playoffs and the Lakers and everything else. So that's going to be phenomenal. And who knows, if the Knicks end up taking game 6, game 7 would be on Monday. So if that ends up happening, then we might have obviously another NBA game coming for a Monday night game before the playoffs would start, or the finals would start on Thursday. All right. That's all I got here. Hopefully OKC versus Pacers. No Knicks, to reiterate. They are arrogant hot dogs. Okay. Very interesting comment there. All right. I appreciate you guys being a part of the show. A members show coming at 10 a.m. So I'm going to timestamp all this. I'm going to get the member show all set up, and then we're going to do a member show. So I hope you guys can hang out for that and be a part of the show. That's coming up in about 50 minutes or so. Thank you, everybody. Hope you guys have a great weekend. Hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day. And we'll get back with you guys on Monday if we don't see you for the show coming up in about 50 minutes. Thank you, everybody. Have a great rest of your day.